Thank you. As I said, Martech has always been a very technical subject. So if you feel bored during the session, please raise your hand and I'll tell you a joke perhaps. Or if you're feeling even bored, you can raise your hand and ask probably a funny question. We'll answer that. I have an amazing panel with me. Most of you have met earlier. Vikram, hi. Shubham, hi. I've interacted with them in the past. Uh, We'll try to make it as interesting as possible, conversational style. If you have any questions in between, you can just raise your hand. It's not that we'll be finishing the conversation and then going to questions. If you have questions in between the panel, you can raise your hand and we'll go straight to the question. Um, I have some facts with me. India's digital economy is crossing 900 million internet users next year. There's also a fact I was doing in my story that uh, LLMs, large language models, in simple language, Perplexity, OpenAI, Gemini, they'll add $3 trillion of value in marketing in the next 5 years. $3 trillion, that's almost the size of India's economy. That's the momentum that LLMs have brought into marketing today. However, what has also come is that now governments are now wary of the fact that these language models are tapping into a lot of information that they shouldn't. And that brings us to the topic of personalization. Another anecdote I wanted to share. About a month ago, I was going through my Instagram feed, and I get an advertisement from Maruti Suzuki selling me a 10 lakh car. And suddenly I go to the next page and I get an advertisement from BMW selling me a 70 lakh car. So maybe one of the marketers got it wrong. Either I am a 10 lakh customer or I am a 70 lakh customer, or maybe I am a 30 lakh customer. Maybe both of them got wrong. So personalization today doesn't mean just scanning through data, using that data. It means a lot. As Mr. Santanam said, ultimately behind that AI has to be a smart person and not a stupid person. With me, I have an amazing panel, and we'll discuss all of this. So I'll start with you, Shubham. Uh, Insurance, is a trust product. Uh, you have spoken earlier about, I was listening to one of your conversations about designing journeys around human needs, not quarterly sales. How have you reimagined these journeys so they respond to real signals rather than static profiles? And for instance, are you experimenting with behavior triggered recommendations such as nudging someone towards health cover after frequent? I know this is a tricky area, but if somebody reaches a pharmacy and you get that information somehow, then are you nudging them towards a certain health insurance cover?
Okay, so yeah, let me answer that in two parts, Brij. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay, so I think the first part to this is where we speak about personalization and how that's supposed to help our journeys, specifically at PolicyBazaar, right? Personally, and you rightly mentioned from one of the previous discussions I'd had, that my personal belief is that personalization is not just to increase a marketer CTR. That should always be a lagging indicator. The idea is always for personalization to help reduce the friction in a customer journey, right? So the idea behind personalization should never be that, hey, if I take the name of the customer in one of my messages or in the journey, then they may, progress faster. The idea is always, if I know something about them, if I have some context from the past journeys that they've done, can I make it easier for them? Can I bring them better suggestions that can help them make a better choice? And to be honest, the intent of PolicyBazaar from the very beginning has been that make the insurance journeys more transparent, show every single available code to the customer so they can make a more informed choice, right? So just staying true to those ethos, I think that's what we have now imbibed in our customer journeys as well. And that brings me to the second part where what we've also done is we have deeply integrated our WhatsApp, RCS communications with our customer journeys. So what happens is if you reach our health insurance page or term insurance page for that matter, and share any details. For instance, if you are a term insurance customer, I would need to know your date of birth, the city you live in order to be able to serve you the best quotes, right? I will also need to know if you're a tobacco user or not, your gender. With those details, while I will make all the quotes available to a customer for them to make a good choice. And sometimes the agents may also reach out to them to help them with their journey. What we also do is some of those best practices of choosing a term insurance plan. What should you do? What should you not do? Which riders are good? Which aren't? These information points we always send out to the customer as WhatsApp messages as well. Many times we'll ensure that, hey, if we have tried reaching out to you multiple times and let's say you didn't pick the call, then how about on a WhatsApp message you schedule the call, right? So while some of these sound very simplistic or basic in nature, what we have realized is that 80% of the journey usually happens through these WhatsApp messages, and it has immensely helped us improve our conversions, right? So like I said, conversion in CT is always a lagging indicator, but getting that feedback from the customer that, hey, your message helped me choose a better IDV for my car or a better cover for my wife term plan, I think that's what we essentially look for.
I'm sure I'm kind of happy that you are not using LIC ads to sell your health insurances, where there's a wife and saying, "वो तो चले गए पर अच्छा हुआ." And, anyway, uh, personalization is a tricky subject. And with a show of hands, I want to know, you are thinking something and you go on your Instagram and suddenly that ad starts showing to you. How many of you have gone through this with a show of arms? That means somewhere somebody is still listening us. DPDP has now come into effect, and it has kind of put certain stringent guidelines for marketers to use. Bharti, I would want to come to you next. Airtel's ecosystem gives you a unique 360-degree view of customer behavior. How do you use these cross-service insights to personalize experiences? For example, can a user's listening habits on Wink or viewing patterns on Extreme help shape more relevant or broadband offers in real time? And also the controversial question, are companies listening to us for better personalization and contextual journeys?
Okay. So,
And this is not going into media, so you can keep it off the record.
yeah, okay. So we'll come to the controversy later. But I think first you started
The
from
mic. Closer to you, closer.
okay. Is it good now? Yeah. So we can come to the controversy later, but let's start from the first question that you're talking about, right? So this is right, having the access to the 50% of the population which is there on connected via media or telecom some ways, and then having the access to that large of the audiences. Yes. This is very helpful in terms of understanding the customer behavior and then being able to come up with something that can actually help solving the people's problems. But I think at a scale like this, Ravi was also talking about the same thing. It actually takes a very, very large period of time in terms of building those roads, in terms of there is a lot of data which is sitting out there in a lot of fragmented shape and not being able to put together, read together, and then being able to come up with the insights that what to cross sell. Right, so there has been a journey for Airtel, and I'm very proud to say in that terms, we've gone through a massive journey of years, and now have been able to solve this, putting the largest and the very strongest CDPs, customer 360s together in terms of being able to see that data in a shape and form and being able to take the insights over it. So Airtel at a scale, there are a lot of multiple business verticals also that we are having, whether it be about fintech, entertainment you mentioned, telco. So there are multiple line of businesses which are generating a lot of different type of data that we are trying to capture and solve for, right? So yes, now if I look into the very right example that you've picked for example, somebody has been watching Extreme, right? And this is not about breaching the privacy of the customer. We at Airtel are very, very mindful about that. Um, but try to read from the patterns that what customer has been watching. So for example, if I want to sell for the broadband, I would want to look for the different segments and different time and opportunities in the different areas of the country, that what time what to pitch for, right? It's very important to pick up the right context as well as the right segment, that how to pitch. So if I want to sell broadband, maybe summer vacations where the kids are there, I would like to unify these two different signals, right? One that like, now it is a time of some summer vacations coming up, and somebody who already has been subscribed to the extreme content, and there is some content which is being processed like, which is focused to the children, which means there are children in the house. Now it becomes the right moment for me to actually pitch for the broadband consumption, because summer vacations is something where the extreme consumption will go high, there'll be higher need of data. So yes, these are like very, very important signal, but the most challenging part for us has been in terms of like being able to listen through different line of signals, being able to ingest them, like, and then articulate them and putting it out there in terms of customers, right? Another thing that you can say is like IPL is also another season for us in terms of like, putting up broadband connections and all of that. So yeah, the larger problem sits around how you stitch all of this together. So this we've been able to solve. Now, coming to, yes, DPDP coming into picture, I think West has been advantageous in these terms. I feel that like, there have been no rules and regulations, and at like, developing countries have always been at that level wherein like people sort of like, more do the experiments over like how things happen. Like you in US, probably if like, being a fintech company, you cannot process and ingest like a lot of data streams while I'm sitting in India, or if I go to Mexico. There is a lot of data that I can actually extract at a customer level, and then accordingly can say that, okay, this is the kind of line of credit that I would want to sanction for this customer for. But in US, I cannot do the same. So now DPDP coming in India is going to be like a very, very high level of game changer. And yeah, telcos and large companies can play a very, very crucial role over there in terms of like, making sure that people's privacy is not compromised, and transparency, and like empowering our users in terms of that you be able to manage how your data is accessed throughout the brands, right? So for example, first I be transparent that as a brand, what is the data that I'm capturing from you? It can be like, listening through your mics, listening through your, seeing through your cameras, listening through your phone calls, but at the same time, being able to give that visibility to the customer, saying that transparently,
We are
okay, this
doing
is the
that.
data that and you choose, you have the access to choose that if you want to access this data, like if you want to change a permission, how you want to go about it, that is going to be very crucial once like DPDP gets implemented.
So I always say ask app allowed to track. So I always say no. I think you should also say no, because I think a lot of when you say yes, it tracks you across the apps that you are using and then uses that
Right.
data.
The problem with that is what is happening is like a lot of basic features are now getting disabled with it. So for example, I use the Pixel phone, right? If I disable my mic, then every time I have to pick up the call, I first have to enable my mic access, and then I have to go about it. So this is how like, a lot of changes will happen in terms of like seeing the access to content in a metrics way, saying that this feature is enabled for your mic access, but rest of the features are not. So like, maybe in future, I don't have to enable my mic every time I take the call, but it remains disabled for rest of the apps automatically. So this is what like, I think I'm hopeful about, that users will be much more empowered with it now.
So Bharti, you said, and a lot of marketers sitting today, one problem that, we all face is that a lot of data comes in through, different segments. And Tabrez, my next question is to you. How do you unify it to make sense of that data? And considering you advise a lot of firms, when you advise brands, what foundational capabilities do you emphasize on so that they can move from these segmented data sets and put them into context and make a customer's journey easier?
Thanks, Brij. Thanks for having me here. Good question. I was listening to Bharti and, the data in silos, right? Telcos, one set of data being for extreme, one set of data for, probably the telcos, the SMS data and all those things. So we do have a lot of data, but at the same time, how do we beautifully use that data, and how do we responsibly use that data? I being at the back end of creating all this thing. My wife thinks that any Instagram ad that is served to her, I'm the person behind it, right? Who's actually selling her data. So uh, that's not the case. Why? Because the way the personalization is working, you don't need to sort of know the person. You need to know the context. That's the most important thing in advertising. Because knowing the person is not solving the problem for you. Why? Because a sort of decayed segmentation which is available in the advertising domain, pet lovers or dog lovers or internet shoppers. No, those are all data which is traditional data, right? What is more important is where is the user right now and what is he looking at, and probably Instagram has already cracked that algorithm, right, basis the content you're watching. The same way the content, the same way is the data. Once we see the signals, once we start reading out the signals, what we do in a very compliant manner, because we're not interested in your PII, your email or phone numbers or names. What we try to do in an anonymized manner, we try to create a digital identity of the user, so that, let's say, Bharti wants to reach out to the broadband users. Probably she said that people during IPLs or the summer vacation, we understand that somebody is really frustrated with reading out certain signal, that is frustrated with probably the current the broadband that he's using. So probably this is the context now that we have got. So let's serve the ad of Airtel broadband. That's the most relevant one. Probably it is about the paying capacity or the household composition as well. There are 5 people, 10 devices, all of them are connected. Probably he's down with the bandwidth and he needs proper bandwidth. So what we are doing is suggesting a better plan to him, right? So somebody has it doesn't mean that he'll not have another thing, right? So that's a context which we need to understand. And this data marriage happens in, it's like an AI which is basically working on the movements. It is a human which is trying to create the strategy of utilizing that movement.
No, no, absolutely true. I think moving from silos to context, I think today it's one of the most important things for a marketer as such. Uh, uh, Vikram, you are in a very different sort of an industry where a customer still wants to be physically welcomed, physically thank you'd. It's not digital. That to that extent. Uh, you know, and ITC's luxury positioning, means expectations become very high. How do you digitally personalize the loyalty experience? For instance, have you seen cases where tailored pre-arrival offers or surprise in-room amenities, have meaningfully, increased bookings or guest satisfaction levels?
Yeah, I think for us in the hospitality category, see, one, we're dealing with a lot of data which is sitting at different places for us, because every hotel have their own PMS and they're storing data. There's a lot of people who are staying, but there are other people also, probably who are coming for weddings or some events or some, just dining and, stuff like that. So there are a lot of data collection that is happening. How do you get them together? First of all, that's our biggest challenge to begin with. But at the same time, the loyalty people or the people who are staying with us, the first party data, from that sense, for us, the loyalty factor is a huge element, because people who come and stay with us and who become our members, for them it is all about, how relevant we stay with them when we're communicating with them. They don't want any nonsense. They don't want any drama. They don't want too much of communication bombarding them also. And we have seen that also the moment we start to bombard them with multiple rounds of communication, they just, drop off and they don't come back also. So we don't want to lose them. And some of these loyalty members that we're talking about, they stay with us at least 10 times in a night, 15 times in a night. There are people who are staying more than 50 times in a night with us also. So that's a very high, value kind of a customer for us. And again, what will work with them, is very different for each one of them. So again, we have to really understand what are their needs and how do we then understand those needs and then communicate back to them. A very simple example, there are people who always prefer to stay in a non-smoking room or in a higher floor kind of a room. Now, if they come and ask for it every time, it's, that just shows the customer that we don't probably know them at all. Because every time if I have to come and ask, can you give me a non-smoking room, it's a useless conversation. But because I have that information in my, somewhere in my CRM and all, if I can proactively tell him that, we have already organized your non-smoking room on a higher floor, it's just a customer delight factor that, gets built into the customer journey for them. So that's the kind of, small nudges that we need to look at. And to be honest, I mean, although we talk about a lot of contextual and, trying to be more personalized and all, what has still worked best from a marketing perspective is the birthdays and the anniversaries. I mean, they still give us the best output no matter what. We have tried to be very contextual in a lot of different ways, but ultimately those birthday communication and the anniversary communication has given us the best output. So that aside, I mean, there are a lot of other ways, but yeah, I mean, that is also equally important part, which is still very old school, but it still works.
Absolutely. I keep getting that birthday notification from ITC time to time, and yet we still chose Leela. I'm so sorry. Next time we'll choose ITC. Uh, Apollo's healthcare ecosystem is massive, Shashank. You have stores all around, and you get a lot of personal data. Now that personal data can be used in ways which can hinge on ethical lines. When you integrate CRM and Martech across online, offline touchpoints, what automated workflows have stood out, and how have you dealt with patient data so as to make sure that you reach to that patient, right? So for example, if I'm using a medicine each month, right, so you give me a notification for that medicine, right, but without hampering my personal space. And so you have a lot of data which hinges on those ethical lines. So how are you managing that?
So, so first thing, so as you mentioned, yeah, we have a lot of data. Like there are almost 7,000 stores where we are doing. Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah. So we have more than 7,000 stores. We have data at each level, at a user level, which we are capturing, and not only from the Apollo pharmacy, it's Apollo hospital, it's Apollo diagnostic, it's Apollo clinic. So there are different groups where millions of users are moving in and out, and those data from a personal level to their in-depth health level, what kind of test, what kind of vitals they have in their body, everything which we are capturing. So the first thing at the organization level, at the CRM level, which we have fixed, and we have make sure that we will communicate the data, we will communicate user only what is necessary and which is helping them to take care of themselves, not crossing the line, and making sure that they also feel that whatever we are communicating them, it's not breaching their privacy. For example, if a person is having a diabetes, if when I'm talking to them, okay, you can refill your diabetes medicine, that's fine. But if I am going very deep into their diabetes, what kind of, which pre-diabetic they are, post-diabetic they are, what's their vital, it's more than 20, 30, then it's from a user perspective, the user will be very much restricted to use our platform. So there is a thin line which we have drawn, like for any kind of communication, till what level of layer we can touch them. And we have bifurcated our user, as you mentioned, patient. The interesting part is the first layer which we bifurcate at a user level are two types of users to whom we are dealing with. One is the caregiver and one is a direct consumer. So for us, the first filter comes, we are dealing with a caregiver or we are dealing with a patient. So caregiver are everyone, we sitting here right now ordering medicine for our parents, or it's direct parent who might be 35, 40 years plus to whom we are dealing with. So for dealing a user who is 35, 40 plus versus dealing a user who is lying under the age of 25 to 30, we have to deal very differently to those users. So different, as you mentioned, what kind of communication and what kind of channel we have bifurcated and how we are dealing with this user is we can't bombard a user every day, come refill your medicine, buy medicine, because that's not necessary for them, and that communication is not relevant. So for us, we have from all the data we fetch, we have event or signals from a data perspective when the medicine or they have a medicine which is getting over. For example, if you have purchased a medicine for 30 days, from 27 days is my best time for you to trigger, or 28th day, or it's D-1 or D+1. Yeah, when your medicine is almost over, and then I communicate, okay, it's a time for you to refill and take care of yourself so that you're not missing on your dose. Is something how we target an user. A user who has entered into a hospital, prescription is generated. How we make sure the moment that user reach out to their home, their medicine is there at that place. So we have a real-time data where once a doctor has prescribed and the prescription is generated, we have real-time signals with us, and then we can we reach out to your user. Okay, you don't have to go and stand in a queue if you are not well, standing in a big queue of Apollo Pharmacy or any of the pharmacy, and you go home and your medicine will be at your place with different, all which has been prescribed by the doctor. So these are the touch points where we enter. If you have done a vitamin D test and you have a deficiency in vitamin D, how we can cross sell to a user? Okay, these are the different multivitamins you can order, you can place. Once you have taken that, and we know from a data perspective, okay, if a vitamin D vitals take 3 months to recover. So when will be your next time we can make you recall, okay, this is a time for you to go for a test again and check whether your vitals are normal or not, or you have to be again go and consult a doctor. So these are the different touch points where we reach out to the user.
I think the business model where a doctor prescribes a prescription and you get the signal to deliver, because I think that business model is in trouble, because most doctors keep medicines with them these days. Once they prescribe the medicine, they're like, "Bahar jaake le lo." I think you have to rethink that. But let's do a live survey. To the audience, raise your hands if you prefer personalized recommendations over generic ads. Okay. Yeah, so see, personalization is important. I mean, raise your hand if a brand has ever creeped you out with overly personal messaging. Okay. Anybody wants to give an example? Okay. Anybody? No? Okay, personalized to you, so I think it was very creepy. So raise your hand if you have unsubscribed from a brand because of too many notifications. So somewhere brands are going wrong, right? In these journeys where personalization is now getting important. Yes, see, the first question was that people like personalized ads, but there are too many notifications, too many creepy messages. Bharti, you have taken your mic. Yes, you want to.
I just wanted to add over the point. I saw more hands getting raised for the creepy notifications, which is over personalized, knowing much more about me than the personalized ads. So this is where I think we were talking about the DPDP coming into the picture, and we being able to actually choose that how much do I allow you as a brand to look into my information. And once I as user get empowered about it, I'll feel okay, now this is the permission that I've given you to look into my profile. So this much of creepy and cringiness is what I can I'm happily getting aboard into, but beyond that is something that I don't want to compromise on. So yeah, this is where we are heading to, and this is the new chapter, I think, getting unlocked in Martech.
I was going to that question. Where are we heading to?
So just
Yes,
one
yeah.
point to that. I think it's with DPTP coming into picture, the good thing is that now the customers will have the power to choose if they want the brands to reach out to you or not, and how much you want the brands to reach out to you or not. So the customer can be very, very clear about their choices. Again, some brands may not be very ethical. They can still reach out to you in some other way, but most of the brands will have to follow the policy, and there is no exception for the brands in this. So as a aware customer, try to figure out which brand, how much you want them to be interacting with you in what format. But that's the power back to the customer now. That's the great thing for from a customer standpoint.
But the pool size for the marketer is now probably.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Again, see, we will still have enough data and enough ways to reach out to the customer. Maybe not as personalized as we want to, but I mean, we have been doing marketing for so many years now that you will figure out a way to still reach out to the customer, still drive your efficiencies the way you want.
Yes, sir, I see you have raised your hand, but I want to take a comment. Yes.
I think we are hearing a lot about DPDP, right? And we are all thinking it's a devil which has come in, to control a lot of things. But that's not the case being into the data, right? Because see, there's a difference between a personalization, what I always say, the new buzzword would be responsible personalization, right? That is allowed. What is happening is that, there's a difference between the impression serve, which can be creepy. Why? Because, probably my wife bought the diapers for my, daughter, and then every app she is going to, you have a first cry coming over there. That's a creepiness, right? Because you need to understand when is the user engaged. That's what I'm saying. The personalization has to be tied to a context, to a moment, and nobody minds sharing their data once they understand there's a recommendation which is coming instead of there is an impression flood which is coming to them. So I think we just confusing ourselves with the DPDP. Why? Because DPDP does not stop you to utilize your first party data in the most sort of a very very organized way or a responsible way. What is more important, it is a third parties which are going to be get affected, which is platforms. Why? Because they will not be able to get into that creepiness. Why? Because the signals are not going to come directly to them. Yeah.
And I'll go to the theme of this conference, agentic AI. Personalization, I guess, will become a lot easier once agentic AI systems come into place, and that would be my final question to all of you. And you can choose to respond very briefly, because if let's say I am a customer and I have my agentic AI interacting with the agentic AI of a company, right? Your agentic AI knows what I want. My agentic AI knows what I want from your company. Would that make it easier? Where are we on that? Where are your companies on that? So, we can start with Shubham, Bharti, Vikram, Shashank, and then Tabrez.
Yeah, so I think for us, agentic AI is a journey we sort of stepped upon about 6 to 8 months back. Already about 5 to 10% of our car insurance sales do happen through these chatbots and agentic, voice calling bots. And what we have seen is that it's a very specific segment of customers, usually on both the sides of a normal curve, you could say, where these bots end up working and end up selling the right products to the right people, right? However, particularly in a much more involved, researched, or nuanced product like insurance, there's always that middle part of the curve where you do need human touch. So what we've done is the first touch point in a lot of these use cases is for us like a voice bot or an agentic bot. However, a lot of these signals are passing back the human touch signal to us, where there's a direct line to the live agent, and usually we see most of our conversion happening there. But just would like to also tap into the previous point that was discussed, that I do understand that of course everybody would be creeped out by extremely personal notifications or a barrage of notifications, and unfortunately most of the brands tend to try to capitalize on that these days, right? What we've also realized is that one of the product features we had recently launched is that we asked people for their car number, specifically because we wanted to give them reminders regarding their PUC, their insurance renewals, their challans and whatnot. Like a lot of apps are doing that, right? So of course it would sound like a Me Too strategy. However, what we saw is that if you were to draw a parallel with a communication, simply sending a message to the user and saying, "Aap apna registration number de dijiye," versus some feature like this, the success rate is almost unparalleled. It would be 10x, 20x the kind of response you'll get. So clearly, even if there are multiple apps doing the same thing, people are willing to do that if you're taking the right strategy. So yeah, I mean, it's all about figuring out the right guardrails and tapping into that.
Very, very briefly, I think we are very short on time for this panel now.
So I think at Airtel, we are actually a combination of both online and offline world. So while we want to go about personalizing as much as online world that we can and we have, but it also remains important, the 20 to 30% interactions will still remain to be offline. And I think the future in terms of agentic AI is like how we can actually improve those offline experiences as well. So this is what we are strategizing towards.
I think for us it will be very, very critical to be ready for this agentic AI world, because there's a lot of interaction that happens between our customer and our call centers also, which is very basic queries. I'm landing at 11:30. Can you arrange a cab for me? Is my room be ready if I'll reach early? So there are a lot of conversation which can be simply moved to a agent, and there is no human interaction required at all in that. Again, chatbots can solve that to some extent, but that whole personalized way of talking to each other will come through an agentic AI solution. So that's where the focus is. More than selling something, it's more about the service for us right now. That's where the current focus is.
Shashank.
Yeah, so it's more like similar to what Shubham mentioned. Even for us, like we can't go 100% autopilot being into healthcare. So we have Ask Apollo on our app where users, so our objective is how we can ease the process and solve it faster. So before going to a doctor, you have everything checks you have uploaded there, what kind of symptoms you are having, so that when you connect with a doctor, the process is faster for you. So for us, agentic AI and chatbots is solving 60-70% of the workflow, and it's making overall process and the timeline shorter for even for a doctor and for a user who is talking over that.
Tabrez. Yeah.
I think India is beautifully chaotic, right? So AI still, I would say, B2B, yes, it is there. B2C, it will take some times, why? Because we saw in the SDFC presentation, physical is the still the formula for India. So from the B2C perspective, yes, it will take time.
In my personal life, I'm not punctual at all, but today I have taken this uh, that I'll be punctual. So no questions. Sorry, sir, for this panel. But you can go into the speaker lounge and ask your question to the speakers. Anybody wants to ask any questions, they can write to us. They can meet the speakers and raise their questions. So no questions for this panel. However, we all know personalization. Everybody wants personalization. The intent, the behavior, and the company's ethics is what matters. So a big round of applause again for everybody on this panel. I think they explained it particularly well. Over to you, Saibjit.